Hello everyone, my name is Shailini Shet Amin. I am a senior partner and founder of a social enterprise called Light.Moralfibre. We work with artisan-based fabrics, mainly Khadi, and most of our fabrics are produced within 250 kilometers of where we are. We are based in Ahmedabad, so most of the fabrics are produced in Gujarat. We support about 2,500 artisans through our work. We mainly export. Most of our fabrics are exported. It was not something, it just has worked out, and I'll tell you the story of that. And we exported to about 18 different countries. So this is about Khadi. And let me tell you few more things that most of the people don't know about. I'm going to be talking about what is Khadi, what is the origin, how do we understand that, and why is it relevant, what does it do to you, and how does it fit in with her today's lifestyle. There are so many confusions that are there that I found out as I went along, and my journey to teach people about what Khadi is and what is the relevance has been continued for all the times that I've been working with Khadi. Khadi is hand-spun, hand-woven fabric. What it means is that from a cotton, with hand-spinning method, the yarns are made, and through hand-weaving, putting them on the loom, the fabric is made. And that has been an oldest technique of fabric making historically, and that is what Khadi is. Many times it gets confused with handloom. Handloom is where the yarns are made in the mill, and then it is given out to the handloom artisans or the weavers, and they would weave it to the different patterns. So handloom and hand-woven fabric and Khadi are different, because Khadi is hand-spun and hand-woven, while handloom is just hand-woven. Also, many times there are, in this day and age, there are so many spurious fabrics that are being called Khadi and being sold because of a certain flair or certain misconceptions, or also their financial reasons. So first of all, let me show you. This is Khadi. If you look at it closely, you can see the weaves. You can see some weaves that are uneven, because the yarn is made by hand on the charkha or on a power loom, and because it is done with hand, the unevenness and slight roughness of texture is something that is very, very characteristic of this fabric. So that is probably one way of recognizing it and making out what Khadi is and what is not. Now the question is that, how did you know about Khadi or know of Khadi? I'm sure many of you have seen, or most of us have seen Gandhiji with a charkha, and everybody's trying to wonder that what charkha had to do with India's independence and why he was promoting it, and is that Khadi or what it is. Let me start from even older history, and then I'll bring it to Gandhiji's contribution to Khadi. For generations, India had learned to grow cotton, and most of the time it was a rain-fed cotton, short staple, which was grown without any additional rain requirement or pesticides or anything. It was something that was grown in the kind of a drier area where nothing else could grow, and they could grow cotton, which was something that became part of India's culture. From there, in households, the cotton was picked out, then the seeds were removed, the cotton was taken out. Seeds were of course made into oil, which we call the cottonseed oil, and the fluffy thing around that was sort of carded, recarded, and then it was finally made into slivers, and then they used to put the yarn out from there through using the charkha and various other methods, and then those yarns were put on the loom and then they were woven. This was something that went on for thousands of years in India. Each region of India, each area had their own characteristic, own way, because people wore different kind of things, or people from Gujarat wear different kind, used to, maybe not now, but used to wear different kind of clothes. People from Saurashtra used to wear different. The farmers used to wear different clothes. The cowherd people used to wear different clothes, and each region had different kind of clothes that people used to wear. So each area had developed their own style of making fabrics to suit their community and their requirement. So India was rife with huge amount of talent in making fabrics, and they used to feed the needs of everybody, and also some of the brave traders who were going across the seas to sell various things like spices and everything used to also take cotton, and it used to bring in lots and lots of wealth. It was a kind of a third pillar of rural economy. One was farming, the second one was animal husbandry, and third one was fabric making. And that really, we talked about Sone Ki Chindiya, that India was and all that. That was because of all three pillars that used to bring in wealth and prosperity to people. And in fact, what was really hand spun and hand woven at the time was Khadi. Now, as the time went by, and when the British came and started ruling us, and when the mills came up, and they first of all wanted to use our cotton, and of course then finally it went to South America, and the whole sort of trade and slavery and all that started in there. And then once they started producing a lot of fabric, they wanted to sell the fabric to India, because we were part of the colony. And at that time, some of the weavers were actually taxed for making the fabric, because they didn't want the India's fabric to be sold anymore. It went so bad that some of the weavers cut their thumb, and if you cut your thumb, you can't really weave, because you can't even hold it. So this was their one way of doing a kind of a farmer suicide that people hear about now. And when Gandhiji came to know about it, he realized that you can't really tax, like you can't tax the salt, you can't even tax cotton making. So he said that let all of us do the spinning and weaving, or at least spinning, so that the government can't tax anybody. If we all become spinners, then who can government tax? And based on that, and because it became then a kind of a symbol of Swavalamban and Swatantrata, self-sufficiency, and it really created a kind of an Indian identity for India's freedom struggle. That is what Gandhiji did, and that is where Khadi became very popular. And it was all about hand spinning and hand weaving the clothes that we make, so that we become self-sufficient, we become self-reliant, we stop buying fabrics from abroad. Like, now we are talking about, in post-pandemic time, we are talking about ATMA-NIRBHAR and Swadeshi and all that. This was one of the first Swadeshi movements that really, really got a momentum, caught people's imagination all over. And that was the Khadi movement. So Khadi had a huge history and tremendous amount of history. It played a role in India's prosperity, India's freedom. Now people say that, okay, all that was great. Now, we have milk clothes and we have synthetics, so we have this and we have that. Why is Khadi relevant even today? So let's look at that. Khadi has come a long way from the time that we saw Gandhiji spinning on a charkha, because it has still is like through Khadi and village industry boards and all that, there are cooperatives who still work in the villages to support the spinners and weavers. Rather than a charkha, people use an ambar charkha, which is like a 12 spindle, so that the production is faster, the quality is lovely, and you can have a lot more controlled kind of a production. It gives people, and especially women, opportunity to work from home where they are in the villages. And that is something that is even now prevalent in many, many parts. And that is number one. And number two is about finding the weavers to work. And there are so many traditional weavers who were doing the weaving. Now, of course, the numbers are dwindling for various reasons, mainly because we are not supporting Khadi, or we are not supporting their work and, the whole financial calculations and everything else. But that used to go into to the hands of the weavers, and the fabrics used to be woven there, and then, the production used to be made. It is still made that way. And the requirement and the need for the artisans to get this kind of an income is so pivotal. It was pivotal historically, it is still pivotal now, because there are so many pockets. Sometimes we don't see living in the city saying that, oh, it just, somebody gets something like 200 rupees a day, and how big is that money and all that. The people in the villages, even getting 150 rupees a day by working from home means a lot. And that really is a life changer. So we are really people-oriented kind of work when we support Khadi. We support the people who really need the money most. So that, and if you compare that with mill fabrics, mill fabric is, of course, it has huge investments of machinery and the land and the artisans and the amount of stock that they get and all of that. And then 80% of the profits goes to the mill owners and the shareholders. While with Khadi, 80% of the cost or the profit or the income that they get goes to the spinners and weavers, and that gets distributed amongst thousands of people. So if you really want to support the rural economy and people living in the remote villages, women, I think Khadi still has a lot of relevance. Now let's talk about the other aspects. If you take a shirt that is made, 100% cotton shirt that is made in the mill, and if you take a shirt 100% Khadi, if you compare that, how the energy consumption works. For 100% mill-made shirt, whatever energy it takes, because the spinning is done in the mill, the weaving is done in the mill, the processing is done in the mill, the water amount of consumption and all that, all the wastages, all the other chemical things that sort of go into it. And the hand-spun and hand-woven shirt made by Khadi, that takes only 9% of electricity, because mainly the energy goes into spinning in the machinery or the weaving in the machinery and all the processes, but all of that processes are done by hand. So it is one of the most environmental sustainable fabric. Also, it uses only 1/5 of water in processing, because most of the things are done with hand. So when we are talking about the carbon footprint and the global warming and all that, this is one of the best fabric ever that is possible. And India is one of the very, very few countries where this fabric is still made. Well made, not well made is a different thing, but it is still very, very well made. And at least that whole industry is still working, which is fantastic. You all have seen during this whole COVID-19 lockdown and everything else that the nature has really flourished. The other species on the planet have flourished too, because we have, by choice, because of the compulsion of the lockdown, we have reduced our carbon footprint. And within weeks, the nature has really flourished. So we should realize that how much impact, negative impact, we are making to the earth, and how we should really protect ourselves from that. And Khadi and handcrafted fabric, because of it supports lots of people in villages, which also we need post-COVID, and it also supports the greening of the environment. I think we should promote Khadi and handcrafted fabrics more than anything else, even in terms of the government policies and all that, in our selection, in our understanding. All of that has to be considered. And I think it is still one of the most sustainable fabric. We say moral fiber fabrics free the environment from pollution and depletion and free people from poverty. And I think that is even more relevant as the time goes by. So that is where Khadi really, really comes in. It supports people in the local industries. I mean, it supports people in the local villages, and it is locally produced fabric that promotes the good environment. Our own water, our own sky, our own rivers are protected because of that, and our people are taken care of. What else do you want? What kind of industry would provide that? So you produce the fabric, so you produce the product without costing the earth and support the people. This is the amazing thing about Khadi, and many times people don't really see the context. When I talk about it to a lot of students in the colleges and all of that, and they said, we didn't even know about it, because people get into this whole political thing about the politicians wear the Khadi, and it's really gone so messy without people understanding the real value of it. And that is why the public acceptance of this as one of the most sacred fabric, rather than that, it has become a kind of a propagandist kind of a thing. Even the quality of fabric. I mean, this is something where I'm going to talk about next. As the time gone by, I remember as a child, my auntie was a freedom fighter, and she worked with Gandhi. So that is where I got to hear about Khadi and understand about Khadi and all that. So I can say that from my childhood, Khadi was in a kind of my DNA. But of course, after that, I became an architect. I went away. I was abroad. I came here and all of that. But Khadi was something that I had somehow was made to understand at the right place. And at that time, when the whole freedom fighting movement was going on, and people were really into Khadi and the kind and the quality of fabric that I'd seen at the time, 8-10 years ago, when I started working or looking at Khadi, I realized that the quality was not all that great, and there's a kind of whole dullness that has gone into the industry, so that people didn't really understand or value, because it was sort of considered to be the poor man's fabric, and they were sort of talking about the rebates and all of that, and the cooperatives who were producing it, according to me, had lost appreciating and valuing the beauty of the fabric itself. So when we started working, we produced the catalogs, and we produced the kind of material that people could really understand, and we started a web-based business, and we realized that 85% of our buyers were from abroad, and they had more awareness about it and everything, about the sustainability, about the fairness of the artisan work and all that. So all that had really helped, and that is something that had created the quality and created the contemporariness of the fabric. And I think that is something which I think we want to promote in the most prolific manner to today's generation. It has to attract, or it has to have a kind of a wow factor that would attract the younger people. So that is where the quality aspect of it really comes about. Now, we also would like to invite most of the young students and the designers who are interested in experimenting with Khadi and experimenting with real Khadi. I think that has been a bit of a misunderstanding, misappreciation that has gone, and a lot of people. So that is why Khadi is a certified fabric. It needs to be getting the Khadi India certification, so that people know that it is really hand-spun, hand-woven, and people are not being misled. So that is one of the things that is very, very important. And I wish and pray you come to our website. We have a Moralfibre website where you can see amazing amount of fabrics, where you can buy, where else you can buy it. We sell it in different shops. There's some of the Khadi shops that are available. But more interestingly, some of the designers, not designers with capital D, I'm talking about that, they just use a little bit of Khadi, and because Khadi has become a buzzword in a way, because of Prime Minister Narendra Modi is talking about it. So sometimes, it has been misused as well. But at the same time, if the big designers are using it, that is kind of that also creates a kind of aspirational value to it, which also I'm extremely grateful. But at the same time, I really, really believe that the fabric is for the people, by the people, and we should all promote it. Let me see if I can take you around and show you some stuff that we do. I don't know whether I should be able to do that, but that will give you a bit of an idea. I can't really do it. I don't understand. But these are the kind of a smart kind of a designs and patterns that we work with. We work with Indo-Western client buyer group, and we create a really, really cool stuff which gets really very well accepted, and it has a tremendous amount of acceptance. So of course it's in the hands of the designers and people who work with it. They have to make those decisions and decide what is possible to contemporize the fabric and get the best value out of it. I hope this has given you some insight and understanding of what Khadi is, and we would love to hear more from you, have your more comments, and I hope it has been helpful. Thank you.